welcome back. I'm Omar Reed, an AI engineer, and I'm here with my friend Roy.
Yeah, Roy Ono. I'm a researcher in AI and neuroscience. Yeah, we basically talk about all things AI, Africa,
Mm.
tech, politics, and everything in between. And today, I think we can sort of dive into the docket already, right? We have quite a few things to talk about, actually.
Yeah,
I think, almost going to kick us off
yeah, I'll
talking a
kick
little bit
us off
about
with this one.
the AI is making CEOs delusional.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really good video by a creator slash engineer called Mo Bitar, and he talks about how Garry Tan. So Garry Tan is the current, I guess, like CEO or president of Y Combinator. If you're not familiar with what Y Combinator is, it's a startup accelerator, and you that means you're applying with a team and a rough like a business plan. And if you get in, it's like the highest tier like startup accelerator. They give you money. You've got 3 months in Silicon Valley, and some of the most prestigious or most well-known startups in the world, Stripe, Airbnb, have come through Y Combinator. So he has a lot of YC has a lot of prestige and power in Silicon Valley. So the president, Garry Tan, he is on Twitter because all of them tweet a lot. And he was like really excited about like his AI setup. And he's like, this is the future, like where like I'm dealing with the computer in God mode. And he shared basically just a bunch of text files or skills that are like, do meeting prep or, fix some bugs or and like every engineer was like, we have this already. Calm down. And because these are the things that as an engineer you would do this and you're really excited with yourself. Maybe with your friends, you'd be like, I made this really cool thing. Look at my notes set up. My notes are set up in this way. And now I have AI on top fueling that. And it's like, oh, this is amazing. But we don't share it out and put it out with a bunch of people because we know like, likely everyone has a similar setup already. So when we see these presidents doing this of these big institutions, we're like, they've gone a bit delusional because they're now able to like use these tools to get something out. And the nice twist in his video was like, but we've all been like Garry. Like, we've all had the moment where like for me it was when I had my Obsidian set up and I had Claudian, which basically just runs Claude code in the Obsidian interface. And now I've got all these meeting prep notes and meeting feedback, and it's pulling up my transcripts and my therapy notes to give me feedback. And I'm like, I have a personal assistant. I have a Sunday weekly planning skill. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is the stuff that we were wishing for, that we really wanted to be able to have. But it's not so exciting that you're like this is God mode. Hey guys, let me share this thing with you. A GitHub repo with all his skills. Yeah. So that's the story.
Yeah, so many talking points here. And I think, this will lead into some of our views on Silicon Valley as well, because I think that this is also a
Mm-hmm.
function of Silicon Valley. So, as Omar mentioned, Y Combinator is almost like the Harvard of startups. It's like
Mm.
it's like the startup school to go to. They churn out these incredible startups. And, I know a couple of people who went to YCs, some of them are friends. And like, the statement here is that YC sets the market. Like you
Mm.
didn't know that you needed something until YC told you that you need this in within the ecosystem, right? So Garry Tan, who's really been pushing, he's been a relatively good like president of YC, I guess, super public facing, is victim to, in my view, like AI psychosis, right?
I get a little bit. Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's pretty much it. It's just
It's
that, like, yeah.
especially when, like you said, he's setting the tone. So if he's like AI is God mode, all of the startups need to be AI first. Everyone's gonna start to sprint towards doing that because they think they're contrarian, but like there's a lot of herd mentality.
So it's this dangerous combo of AI psychosis with actual leverage and power that he can basically take his ideas and his psychosis and bring it to market as soon as possible. Because that, just for those who don't know what AI psychosis is, it's
Mm.
essentially this phenomenon in which people are kind of stuck in a silo with AI, right? Like, AI is very agreeable. Like when you use
True.
these technologies, it says, yeah, great idea, like you did a fantastic thing here,
Yeah.
etc., etc., etc. And I'm victim to this. I think we all victim to this in some sense. It basically like doesn't really provide you contrarian views, right? So you
Mm.
end up creating this whole entire world in your I guess in your brain, right? In which you believe one thing to be true. When you put into the real world, it's not really the case, right? And I think
Yeah.
Just people use it for relationships, people use it for multiple things. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
so Gary Tan, my view on the situation that he was like, okay, cool. He was going really hard on vibe coding and
Hmm.
using these language models and said, hey, this is fantastic. I'm Gary Tan. Let me put this out there. People are gonna love it. And unfortunately got a bit burnt.
A lot of stars on GitHub, but like everyone else was like, all right, this is weird. Come on, relax.
Yeah. Stars are not a good signal, right? I think the really good signal is like usability. I think he got the stars because it's Gary Tan.
Exactly. That's that, and this is goes to back to this herd and power and leverage. It's like he does, and it fuels the psychosis. He's like, nah, this is God mode. Look, 20,000 people agree with what I'm doing.
Now, the deeper conversation here, and I think what that video does as well, is it basically not only zeroes in on Gary Tan, it also zeroes in on big C-suite decision makers in companies who are now outsourcing their strategy to language models. They have executive power. Sometimes they can just basically bypass a lot of the checks and balances within a company and say that, we're doing this now, right? And could potentially damage the company in multiple ways, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the real fear here. I think
Yep.
that's the really, really big fear here. And I'm curious. I think we're going to see a lot more of these situations. This is without a doubt the case. The question is like, how do we avoid making these mistakes? I guess, the case of Gary Tan, there was like, social media, which basically was able to fight back
Mm,
against this. But like within an organization in which people are using this for strategy,
yep.
how do you counter this?
So I've actually seen CEOs who are like, and you have to really think about like most CEOs of companies, especially outside of tech, are gonna be like non-technical. And you're probably gonna have the one person in the company who's like Gary, who was non-technical before he starts using Claude Code, and he's like, yo, I'm basically a developer now. Like our developers must be able to move so fast and give them these tools, and we should be able to be spinning up all of this, all of these things magic overnight because they were able to vibe code a particular product prototype, not product, a prototype that makes people because their skill set was low, and then they have a thing that made them like jump. They think that that same effect will happen for everyone else. So it puts unreal expectations on the outcomes and on the people that are supposed to be using these tools. If you're running any complex technical project, you know the limitations of coding agents, and you're not being running away with these fantasies
Yeah.
because you know what it takes to build a real system. But the senior executives tend to not have that level of understanding or that level of usage of the tool to really get to the limitations in the context in which software engineers, AI engineers, or product people like the way they are. So it really does become a problem because you have senior leaders expecting the world, but then when your people in the world are trying to do the things they're asking, it doesn't go as far as they
Mm.
think it goes. So if you're in a company where no one's pushing back on the senior leaders and being like, hey, look, you can't, is this not going to change things immediately? It's actually going to take real work to take this tool and get maximum leverage. Oftentimes, it's more about how can I change the organization and our workflows so that I can use this tool in the best way, not just take the tool and just start creating websites or apps or whatever you're gonna do. That's not gonna tends to not lead to meaningful things. Because what happens? You use the tool and you get a prototype. Then what? You gotta deploy, evaluate, monitor. Like you have to do so many things. So it's there's almost like a separation between like how good the tool is in practice versus like how cool the tool is in idea land. It's in idea land, it's like, whoa, AI is gonna get
Yeah.
rid of all the engineers. But you get rid of all the engineers and then shit goes wrong. And you're like, whoops, I needed the engineers. There's a few companies that did that.
It's a real like this. I think as I mentioned previously, I think this is really a problem of AI psychosis. Like I think Gary Chan is a very smart person. I feel like if he knew that this would have the reaction it would have, he would not have put it out. I think it was just a bias, and it was just like, he was using these things and felt empowered. I mean, I think he is an engineer by training. I think he is.
Yeah, I think he was an engineer and then he became more of like a product manager at like Palantir or something like that.
Yeah, so I think he can code. I think it's just
Hmm.
that I think that yeah, I think he maybe overestimated what he was building. But it's funny because, and I think it ties into the previous conversation we had in the previous episode, right? Because if we take a step back, if we don't think about tech companies. Think about your traditional companies, like traditional companies like Coca-Cola, like, companies that are like been around for hundreds of years, like these
Yep.
beautiful German companies as well, that have been
Mm-hmm.
around for hundreds of years, very slow to move, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the companies based on strategy and like manufacturing, right?
Correct.
Of course, manufacturing numbers, etc. You can easily see these things, but
Mm-hmm.
like I know of a couple people in not a Coca-Cola, but people in spaces in which they job a strategy, right?
Mm.
And before, when coming up with a strategy, it required thought. It required you to sit down and look at the business and be realistic about what's happening, and then say, I think that we should potentially go in this direction for the company,
Mm-hmm.
or like let's or try to do maybe internal, not politics, but like switch around the internal org. Maybe we need to invest more into this,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. And like now, what I've been seeing amongst peers and friends, right, is a situation in which people are like, okay, giving their data to AI
Yep.
and saying, what should I do here?
Yep.
Or saying, give me some interesting ideas
Mm-hmm.
of where we can take the company. What should I do here? I'm also a
Mm-hmm.
victim of this. You know, I think it was a very low stakes environment, but we were supposed to design a program or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
an internal program for a VC firm I used to work for, a student-run
Mm-hmm.
VC firm, a couple years back. Like I used ChatGPT to just sort of think through the strategy. We were trying to figure out how to get more grad students in venture capital, but that strategy was heavily informed by AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the issue here is that I think that we're going to fall into a situation in which, in some sense, the AI is dictating our strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and we get into the psychosis, right? And like, how do we avoid that? I don't know. I guess it's the test of time.
Ah, I would say try. How do I avoid that? It's really a case of knowing when, like, if who has a better model of the situation? Is it the AI or me? If I feel like I have a good understanding and I'm in the driver's seat and the LLM is just helping me, then that's okay. But when the LLM is in the driver's seat and you're like questioning it to try and inform, that's probably when it's like now it feels like the AI is driving more of the thoughts and the strategy than you are, and that is can be a dangerous place
It's,
because
it's a
it's cognitive debt.
it's a very dangerous place. And like there's so many cases in which this happens. Like, I remember as well, like, I was doing a bunch of like customer discovery calls
Mm-hmm.
um for a startup. Like I was talking to a bunch of other founders and people within the VC space as well. And I was asking them like how do you make sure that you're effective with these customer discovery calls? So their strategy was like, I have I basically have like this like a phone recorder, like these
Mm-hmm.
recorders that you put on Zoom or whatever. I get the transcript, right? And then I start to ask the AI, where could I have improved in my customer discovery call? And like you basically go in this like internal loop in
Mm-hmm.
which the AI kind of informs how you should approach these customer discovery
Mm-hmm.
calls. That's a psychosis in some sense. I mean, I think in that case you're a bit fortunate because there is a signal
Yeah.
by sale.
Yeah.
But these are ways in which like AI is informing strategy.
100%.
But yeah, but I guess this maybe leads us to the next topic here because I think this is within sort of the Garry Tan, the Garry
Yeah. You have a
Tan.
great story when you came back from Silicon Valley. I was like, Roy, yo,
Yeah,
how was it?
yeah.
And I had my own opinions, and I wasn't sure if was gonna have a similar opinion to me. And he had this great take of Silicon Valley, and I wanted everyone to hear it.
So actually, I think I'll start off with the story. So I was in SF early in the year for an accelerator, which is a fantastic experience, right? And
SF is San Francisco, by the
San
way.
Francisco, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I I think in the first week I had a call with my PhD advisor just to
Mm-hmm.
like touch base on the paper and just like my progress or whatever because I'm wrapping up this year. Like we were on the call, like we were having a great time, and then towards the end it's like hope you're having fun in La La Land. 'Cause like he called us like San Francisco La La Land. I think he was sort of tongue in cheek. I think he obviously has like some great it's great people in San Francisco, but he was kind of like he was like, yeah, because I was explaining to my experiences, and he was like, yeah, that checks out, right? I remember getting off the call, I was like, why would he call it La La Land? And I now know why he calls it La La Land. There is a lot. So SF is like San Francisco is like Hollywood,
Yeah,
right?
but for tech, we
But
like
for tech,
yeah, it might be worth laying out. Like people may know this, but every like of the greatest tech companies all founded, they're basically all in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Apple, Salesforce, and like whatever you can think of, it's all SF
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning, let's if we talk
or
about the art
California.
or California, if we talk about the history, the legacy of SF, this was a place in which they were really great thinkers,
Oh yeah,
right? So like I think this was the birthplace of like Intel,
yeah. It goes way back.
way back. And these were people who were like super educated people. I think it
Hmm.
was, I forgot his exact name, but super involved in the resistors. And like, these were actually a bunch of PhD grads, actually, graduates
Yeah,
who
it
created,
was. I think it was. They set up a bunch of like military like science labs around in the San
yeah,
Francisco space. So it was a high density of technical talent.
100%. So it was really the birthplace of a lot of innovation, right?
Mhm.
And I think as a consequence of this, we got Apple. Apple was founded there. Steve Jobs basically, is like the pariah in San Francisco. Bill Gates was in Seattle, so not too far away. But many other companies were born out of that. And I think there's this very rich legacy
Hmm.
in San Francisco of amazing companies being born there. And even more recently, Airbnb, Y Combinator, etc., etc.,
Hmm.
the birth of modern venture
Opening
capital. The
every
list,
top VC fund, A16Z, like is there.
that's that.
It's
So
the mecca for tech.
100%. If you want
Hmm.
to do tech
Hmm.
for real, like, what I call retail tech, like technology as a retail, like
I said
retail as a retail technology, you go to San Francisco, right? Deep tech,
you can be other places.
it can be other places. So, in the same breath as in Hollywood, where we have these amazing movies, people come to San Francisco hoping to be the next Steve Jobs,
The next Mark Zuckerberg.
the next Mark Zuckerberg. And what that creates is a very weird mix of like people who are high signal individuals, but also a lot of people who are not, they don't display, we're trying to solve problems, right? So what I mean by that is that like, trying to build solutions that people actually need, right? And not trying to sell products because you're trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, it's probably worth like touching on the fact that like San Francisco like was like a very liberal, like open, like very like a resistance kind of thing, like hackers going against the state kind of thing. Very like pushing the envelope, like people at the edges of society, like pushing things forward, cypherpunks and whatnot. And what's happened is that it effectively got homogenized over time. You had a lot of people that study computer science just because they wanted to make money, not because like, oh, they really care about privacy and they really care about flipping cybersecurity and they want to move to like whatever they were doing back in the day, which created a lot of people that became wealthy because they started to work there, but that incentivized more people to come. And you have this loop compounding where everyone's trying to go there, but what happens is like more people are going there to be the next someone. And what happens, it almost like this, it becomes politics
Yeah.
because there's so many ideas, so many things that could be built, but the signal they only care about is effectively money and growth. And if everyone can code, I think it was about the fact that you went to this place, to build a place. If everyone can code, now anyone is thinking like the dream is that much closer. The dream of imagine if the dream of becoming a Hollywood superstar, like the distance went from 100 to 5 overnight. Because now you can have a prototype and go talking to investors. Whatever was holding you back before, it doesn't. Now you got people leaving their hometown and moving to San Francisco, living in a one bedroom shared with 15 people.
Yeah.
It there's a lot of stuff going on that leads to distortions, like heavy distortions.
Mm.
And you pointed out a few like distortions that like even I didn't really expect to come from SF. I don't know if you want to get into those.
Yeah, so I mean, where to start, right? Like maybe I will first paint a picture of what this looks like. Like
Mm,
I'll give a little anecdote. No, no, it's not even an anecdote, like what I observed, right? Like
hmm.
so first of all, every single day, every second day, there's an event. There's some tech event that is somewhere in the city. Bear in mind that the city is like mined with a lot of homeless people,
Oh my God.
especially in the downtown. So it's a weird dichotomy of like very wealthy people who are talking about
Hmm.
stock options, talking about getting stock, talking about like the value of the
High
company,
salaries. You're
high
talking about
salaries,
very wealthy people.
in the same bus as somebody who's like high on fentanyl.
Legit. No, legit. You'll see it. Walking around was uncomfortable.
So it's that type of city, right? I was at this event, one of the many events, and like, I think this was a harmless thing, but I think people are used to it. But seeing it is like, why would you do that? Like that's a little bit, but I guess we're in San Francisco. Like I went to I went to the event, it was on evals, and we were networking after the event. I got to meet some people who were part of Y Combinator, fantastic guys, great guys. And then while we were talking, people were sort of chiming into the conversation, right? And it was a great conversation we were having. And there was a guy that comes in, right? And he comes in with a laminated paper laminated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of his
Street.
business plan.
Eliminated.
Laminated. And he comes in, he's like, so we ask him, so he puts it behind his back.
Oh my
So
God.
we having this conversation, we ask him, yo, like, what are you building? He pulls out this laminated paper and starts pointing, like, I'm doing X, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This is how I plan on making money. This is da 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 da. Great. Do you know anybody who can help me with this? I was like, great idea. I don't. The other said I don't. He's like, okay, cool. I gotta go. Just turn around. Just turn around. And when probably told somebody else this idea. Probably a great guy. But this is what this ecosystem is. And like I think from that story you can already see that like, there's some crazy stuff that happens. And I think it gets even like it compounds further with the vibe coding. And like
Can I say something on
yeah.
that story? It seemed like highly transactional. Like he was just in and out for his purpose and his purpose like alone. He
And
only cared about you all to the extent to which you could help him
and
directly.
and I get it. I get it. Things are moving fast, but it's a beautiful city in which people pay things forward, which I think is great. That's one thing
Mm-hmm.
I can never like shoot down San Francisco is that like people pay things forward in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
like when you're doing something, you tell somebody, they're like, yo, let me introduce you to somebody who can help you, who can push you forward. And I think, we should have maybe exercised a bit of that. Unfortunately, I didn't know people who could help him with that. But like I think the approach and the way it was done was a little bit off-putting. This was my experience, and it was further exacerbated by the fact that we are in the AI. So the amount of capital that's being allocated towards AI, given that we don't have very clear indications on return investment, is a bit bonkers. So people are willing to go. It's a kind of a race to the bottom sometimes
Mm.
to build products. Like I won't get into it, but I do think that there are some players in tech who are selling products largely through marketing and not really providing a lot of value. Like, in SF, there's a lot of billboards. There's
Oh
billboards
yeah.
everywhere on tech.
Explain this like the second you leave the airport, every billboard you see will be a tech company's ad. Like it's not whatever you would normally expect, a grocery store, a car, tech ads only. Like this is like their own little universe.
Yeah. And like, you even see it on Twitter. I see some people on Twitter saying, and this, and it just confirms what we say here is that people be like, it feels like SF is 10 years ahead of the rest of the world. People be like, it feels like SF is in the future. Like you guys don't even know what's coming. They'll tweet and be like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
we in the future. You don't even know what's coming. We're seeing things that you haven't even seen yet. And I think there
Mm-hmm.
is an element of truth there. Like, for example, I was seeing like massive billboards on the highway about like MCP servers. In the same breath, I'm talking to people in like, back home in South Africa or in Canada and talking about MCP. They're like,
What are you talking about?
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
SF, there's a whole entire billboard on the way.
Yes. It's like it's common knowledge what MCP server is in San Francisco to the point that's on the billboard as an ad.
Yeah, massive. Like, SF is so interesting in the sense that a VC said this and I thought it was incredible. SF is such an ecosystem to itself that products are born and die
Mm-hmm.
without ever leaving the city. Like it's born, it has some traction, people
Mm-hmm.
figure out it's an issue, and then it dies before even leaving. Sometimes, a lot of the times, like things that people are using outside of SF, outside of San Francisco, is like months past what's been happening in San Francisco, right?
Mm.
They potentially even move on from this product.
Mm.
So this is kind of like the La La Land comment, and like it's a bit concerning because a lot of the people who had all this great success in San Francisco are now in the administration.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. They running things.
They're running things.
It's a lot of power. A lot of power and influence.
Yeah, that's that. So I think it just kind of marries what's happening with like the delusional AI and
I need to give people examples of this because I went to it was a great workshop, to be honest. It was at the Center for Applied Rationality, and it was in Prague in a castle. We were there for like a
Oof.
week. Yeah, this was it was actually who was like the main donor was Sam Bankman-Fried from FTX.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
who's in jail, by the way?
He's in jail for crypto fraud, basically. But yeah, like people like him were donating tons of money to effective altruism, rationalism, long-termism, AI safety things. So I spent time with these people, and it was so interesting the mindset to which these people had around like AI safety. So I'd ask like, "Yo, what are you working on?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm working with the Swiss energy grid to think about how we can plan for the scenario where AI becomes sentient and takes over the electric grid. Like, this is my calling. I'll be able to. They're like, this is gonna save so many lives. Because if this happens with some small percent chance, but it's gonna have this crazy impact on the whole world, we should just ignore anything suffering that we or anything useful we can do now. And I'm gonna think about what happens if AI jumps out of a machine and takes over electricity grid or leaves the way. I don't even know what mechanism by which this would happen, but they were talking about like how can we do stuff with the grid. I was like, why does this matter when there's so many other problems in the world? And there was this weird calculation of in some future, if this does occur, even though it's a low probability, it can have so many impacts on so many lives, a billion people, the whole of Europe, whatever it is, whatever your ridiculous calculation is. You start to discount the present a lot. And what I noticed about a lot of these people is like they really wanted to like matter, to really feel like a lot of them felt like they were the ones, like they were the clever kids who know machine learning and work, do work at like Anthropics and places like that, or just before they became like famous. They felt special, and they
Mm.
were like, we are working to bring humanity to save humanity. Like they have this really, really deep, almost religious belief, and it's if everyone else around you is like that, things start to get very, very bubbly. It's very, very, what's it called? Like, on Twitter, when there's Twitter bubbles, you're in your own little bubble and you're
Yeah.
just getting more and more extreme and more extreme. It develops La La Land. Now, sometimes this is good because you get an anthropic, but sometimes this can be ruinous because for some hope of something in the future, you're gonna like in the present be ineffective.
Yeah. And I think this speaks to, in some sense, the reason why we're doing this podcast, right? Because so that, as crazy as it may seem in an idea form, is extremely well funded.
Super well funded.
Extremely well funded. And people are taking these philosophical ideas, or at least the way they see the world, and baking it into these intelligence systems.
And guys, and we have to talk about like the AI bias and all of these things. But if you look at the philosophy that the people who built these systems and became famous for applying these systems, they have these really disturbing set of beliefs. And Timnit Gebru and the people from there, they did distributed AI intelligence research, something
Research.
like
Yeah, we need
lab,
to maybe give a proper name for that, but it's Dare Labs, yeah.
their labs, and it's called the test squirrel bundle. And that's a set of beliefs. I don't remember what all of them ones, but it does. Extropianism is one of them. Rationalism is another one. Long-termism is another. What's the L of test squirrel?
Mm.
And these set of beliefs are eugenics. They come from very distorted places, but that's sort of in the philosophical godfathers of Elon Musk, of the Dario Amadeus, of the Sam Altmans. And I don't think we noticed until, like, for example, Elon Musk made a hard shift to the right, and we were like, hold on, he really believes a lot of these things that he's saying, like,
And bakes it into Grok.
and bakes it into Grok. No banning. Think, look how right wing X has become. Look at so it is a we have to understand like these people in power. They have a lot. It's almost like they're shaping reality because people are using these products every single day and they're encoding what they think is correct into these machines, which we all use every single day. And like you said, we're using it to shape our strategy, shape how we're going to be in our relationship. That's a lot of control that they have. That was a long tirade.
No, no, no. I
But it
mean,
was good.
I think it's worth saying this for real because, people ask me, what's the difference between Google and this?
Mm.
The difference is that, like, a language model doesn't need to give you a reference. Doesn't it just tells you in natural
Hmm.
language what it believes to be true. Like for example, it doesn't always have to be malicious, right? It's just a homogeneous way of seeing the world. There's a lot of parts of the world that have very different belief systems,
Yep.
very different knowledge systems
Mm.
that like are contrarian to the way things work in the West. And things that we deem to be very normal are not the case in many parts of the world, especially
Yeah.
countries that are potentially strongly Islamic states
Mm.
or a communist state, even parts of Africa, even parts of the Caribbean. There's
Mhm.
certain things that happen in the West that don't happen
Yeah.
in these parts of the
Let's
world.
let me give an example. For example, if you took the tech for like self-driving cars and you see like the Tesla's first self-driving and you're like, wow, this is great. Like this is amazing. On the US roads, all over the US, it can drive. If you took that same car and put it in South Africa or somewhere even more like KZN, for example, somewhere in a
Yeah.
rural place or even non-rural, you will very quickly bump into problems that you would have never have seen if your training data that you use to make this self-driving car is only the US.
Yeah.
It's a very different place. There's different markings. There may not be any markings that change like the system. You can't have a homogeneous system because the environment in which that system exists can be dramatically different.
1,000%. I think actually, funny enough, it gets onto our next like docket, which is like people who are actually collecting these data sets are Africans.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will die on this hill. And
Mm.
people who know me know that I want to die on this hill. But people want to ignore me on this. We need to have our own language model. Like countries need to treat language models as a matter of national security. It is within your national interest to have your own language model. When you do not have your own language model, you are basically, in some sense, giving up your sovereignty. I'm happy to debate this, but
Yeah, let's give me some examples.
so
A scenario.
there is, for example, the scenario, for example, is like knowledge systems. So, for example, right, like there are certain knowledge systems in certain parts of the world that, for example, like there's a lot of countries that believe in a strong patriarchy. Of course, you can have a patriarchy and still have gender inequality. I know the
Hmm.
data on this, but I think it's potentially plausible, right? And there's certain cultural norms that come in a society. And these are reflected in the laws. For example, a lot of countries don't accept homosexuality. The list goes on. This is one of many, right? If you had to take a language model like that and you had to put it in one of these countries, there would be a clear misalignment.
Yes, I would give one that came up actually between humans. In the UK, if you are smoking a cigarette, you'll say, I'm smoking a fag, because that's the word we
Ah,
use. But if you say that same thing in the US, you're cancelled
yeah.
because it means something, the word fag means something entirely different. And language
That
models is the same.
100%. So this is why I say this because like I think it could create situations in which like it starts to work against your knowledge systems, your indigenous
Hmm.
knowledge systems, and works orthogonally to the way you structure, because the laws of a country are a function of the people of
His
the
cultures,
preferences and the
values,
cultures
yeah.
and the values of a society, right?
Hmm.
Like if you're introducing a technology that's so pervasive, it's misaligning. I mean, there's ways in which they can obviously
So
work
yeah,
towards aligning, you know.
let's take this scenario. Let's take what you're saying, your statement, and say, okay, this is true. If they're so misaligned, wouldn't the people using it try and use it and they'd be like, this is garbage?
So we're getting really, I think now we're getting into like soft power.
Mm,
People, like there is the American hegemony on soft power,
hmm.
right? Like we've already been seeing a lot of the world is westernized. I think, for
Yep.
example, when Americans, for example, go to South Africa, I saw an American more recently was in South Africa, and when they asked him I think it was, sorry, when they asked her where she was from, she said she's from Ohio.
Who? A South
Like
African?
the American girl.
Or the American? Okay.
Why are you not starting with your country? You're starting with Ohio because
I see what you're saying.
people know your country.
Country. Yeah, 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 yeah.
People know more about your country sometimes than what you know about your own country.
100%.
And like there is as much as we all have our own indigenous knowledge systems, there is through media and
Hmm.
through third party ways, there is a massive influence from Western powers that it's very difficult to counter.
Hmm. 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 And I would guess like if America roughly setting norms across the world, then what happens is like there's a section of uses or majority of the uses of that you can use ChatGPT. It might give you pretty good advice
Yeah.
because most like it's relatively similar. There's nuances between countries, but like Britain is very, very like I know so many American things. If I ask them anything British, they have no clue, nothing. They just figured out Central C. You see what I'm saying? Like, so,
Yeah.
so that does make it so that these tools can be relatively useful. But your argument, the way I see your argument, I'm less interested in the language model itself, and I'm more interested in having people in a country that are capable of producing language models.
Yeah.
And then ideally useful products for that specific market and not chase things over in America. Like that's the thing that has to be exercised. And if language models are a useful way to do that, then for sure, do language models.
Yeah, but it's going to be different. Like, it's building a language model, as you spoke about in the last podcast, is extremely expensive. And
Mm.
not only the money, it also requires some serious talent. There's only a few people in the world who can do this. Um, but then again, coming back to it, like, like I said, my argument is around sovereignty. I think
Hmm.
that having this gives you sovereignty, but if you look at the fine print, a lot of the constitutions of many countries, especially in the global south, in these sort of third world countries, are, adaptations of Britain and
Oh,
the Caribbean. A lot of it is pretty
it's
much Britain.
it's crazy. I was speaking to my girlfriend's American, and they said, "What did you learn in school?" And I was like, "About the British Empire and American slavery." And
Mm.
then they're like, "Okay, it's the British Empire. Like, what do you have?" I said, America. And then I was like, they said, where else? I said, India, Australia. And they were like, what? They were like, I said, yeah, the whole, like almost the whole world, the Caribbean. There's so
Yeah,
much. And that actually goes to what you're saying about that soft power. Like it really has, it's there. It's
it's
there in
there.
ways that we
It's
don't
there.
even realize.
Yeah, I always say that, the Brits got one thing right is that they colonized the whole world, but have great relations with everybody
Mm.
somehow. But yeah, so back to it. The data that's being labeled is labeled by
Oh,
Africans. So maybe
yeah.
maybe Omar, you can
Let
talk a little bit
me,
more about that. Yeah.
yeah, there was a great post by 404 Media called AI is African Intelligence. The workers who train AI are fighting back. And this is actually loosely related to stuff that Timnit Gebru has been doing at Dare. I think it might even be highly related. So I'm reading this article and I was immediately shocked because they were like I knew about people were labeling data. What I did not know was like a large portion, for example, of like the Kenyan economy is like people labeling data. Again,
A
British.
large portion of the economy?
Large portion of sorry, not economy. The technical
Oh, okay,
is
okay.
like data labels. Like an example, they gave an example of the author who went to Kenya. He was in an Uber and he was explaining that he's going to do an interview with this data labeling company. He's like, "Oh, I used to be a labeler too."
Wow.
Like it's like very, very common. But what happens is that the the burnout rate is insane because the story they gave was they are working on AI like sex bots. So when people are messaging them, if I'm Omar and I'm doing this job, I have to sext with a person in America. So if I'm talking to a woman, I need to be a man. If I'm speaking to a man, I need to pretend to be a woman. And they're actually having these conversations. Um, um, and also and I was speaking about the cognitive like load of it. Like it's like a lot of
Mm.
switching and changing like how you want to be perceived. But then also you have like labeling frame by frame like porn videos for AI. I don't even know what they want to use that for in porn, but to be used for AI systems. And when he was speaking about the effects of 8 hours a day with no break, he was like, he doesn't want to have sex with his wife anymore, breaking up the relationship. They have like almost like PTSD from
Wow.
seeing all this. Like they looking at just a person they're attracted to does nothing anymore, and it really messes with them at like a very core level. And it was a disturbing read because I was like, and they're getting like pennies on the dot. If you think about the valuations of the AI companies, and without these people doing the labeling, you don't have any moderation. You can't do any automated moderation. You And if you don't have any labeled data, you're cooked like at the
Yeah,
beginning. Like you're just cooked. Like this is the bedrock pillar. It's almost like how there's like the natural resources are in Congo for
auto
iPhone
search.
batteries,
Yeah.
but they don't get there's like ch children earning nothing there. Whereas the iPhone, you make the iPhone, you're making a killing. Is there that pattern exists in data labelers too? And these stories aren't heard. And it's that's the really unfortunate and sad part. Like the world looks at Africa as like behind, or the West looks at Africa as behind, but almost it's like the pillar that is building up the thing that you're calling the future.
And how do there's so many layers to this conversation. Are there no unions? But I guess, unions and
Mhm.
tech are two things you can't put in the same sentence.
For real.
Like you can't unionize tech. Like, they're going to make the argument that you're slowing down innovation
Mm,
and fire you amongst many other arguments, right? This is so wrong on so many levels. I mean, I have heard of this, and I know a company or two who does activity in Kenya in particular, where they basically data label. And I think before this was moderation of data
yep.
from social media. So it's a long history of people doing this. Um, who do I blame? I blame these countries.
Interesting.
I
Which
blame these
countries?
like I blame a country like Kenya.
Wow.
What are the labor laws? Why is this not within the labor laws?
That's valid.
Why are you allowing people to create these type of companies? Right? Like
Mm,
I've heard that, they get them. I even heard that like some of these roles come with psychologists, like people who are therapists that help them.
wa-
Um, like these are very, very difficult roles. I mean, it's not the only role. This mining is also notoriously very difficult,
yeah,
but
deadly.
deadly.
Yeah.
But my question is like, what are the local authorities doing to try
Mm,
and to try and curb this? Like, this is destroying families.
yep.
Yes, you're getting dollars.
That's it. Now you're talking. Now you're talking like like the world.
Yes, you're getting dollars. You're getting dollars, and like you're able to feed your family, and I think that's fantastic. But like, there is a way, right? There's a way to do things, and I think that like I think the local authorities in a lot of these countries, it's not only Kenya, I think it's also in West Africa as well. But like, these countries need to really, really dig into this because these people are coming with contracts.
Hmm?
They're not forcing anybody. They're coming in
Yep.
contracts and saying, we want to build this here. Do you say yes to this? And I think it's very much within the same breath as like what's happening in geopolitics now, where companies are creating asylum agreements with countries, African countries. Like
Mm.
we send you over our asylum seekers into
Oh,
your country.
Britain and
Like
Rwanda.
Britain, Rwanda, Cameroon recently had an agreement in secret with
Wow.
these are, you could protect from these things.
Mm.
You could protect from these things, right? Like these are
Mm.
not clandestine operations.
Yeah.
So like that for me is a real problem here is that like and I think there is a general I think in the African continent and a lot of parts of the global south, not only the African continent, I think all over the
Mhm.
place.
Yeah, they had a lot of moderators in like Vietnam who showed similar signs of
Exactly.
PTSD from doing this. Yeah.
There's just not enough tech hygiene. I mean, for lack of a better term, like, people sitting within these countries in the administration and thinking very deeply about does this make sense within my economy? Does this make sense within my society?
Hmm.
And how can I create laws that protect against this?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make sense for us to come and say, I mean, we could of course put peer pressure on these companies and say, hey, stop doing this.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. Like if there's someone who is in such a desperate situation to where they are willing to go through that level of like mental, almost like mental torture. I have to question like what's going on. Like how is that so? That seems like an environment where like this is almost like the only way out. It feels like being like a rapper a little bit. It's like, it's like if I do this, I can actually have a chance of getting dollars and providing for my family. Or even better yet, if I become a software engineer, I can, earning dollars and provide a good living for my family. There's probably like jobs that aren't able to provide the same kind of income, unfortunately, as these data labeling type operations. And like I can't look at the guy and go, this is wrong, because like his environment is just probably so much like unstable or safer than mine.
yeah, no, certainly. Like, but maybe let's move on to like positives, right? Like,
Yes, yours PhD paper.
well, we can talk about the PhD
Congratulations.
paper. Well, yeah, okay, we can talk about
Yeah.
it later. This paper's finally out. I think I spoke about it previously. It's a paper I've been working on for a good number of years, and it's been kind of like the main the main theme of my thesis, which is trying to understand normalization. We do normalization in many different ways. Like in statistics, it's a very well-known thing. It turns out that in modern AI, this is a very important computation, and also in the brain. The brain does this in multiple different instances, especially when it's trying to avoid like when it's trying to saturate neural activity. So for example, I gave the example of the previous podcast of you're getting a lot of intensity in sun and light within your retina, and you want to normalize to try and sort of clamp the responses. But also this is an important thing for epilepsy, why
Mm.
we have epileptic attacks is because it's sort of runaway activity. Um,
Oh,
it's your brain is basically just the neurons are just firing without a
anything to dampen the response.
no dampening of response through inhibition. But basically, epilepsy, I think is even defined as that, right? And normalization, maybe the linking between normalization and epilepsy is not too strong, but it's fundamentally the same concept.
Yeah.
So my PhD was trying to figure out how does the brain actually do this? How does the brain actually normalize activity in learning? When it's actually doing a task. And I was using modern artificial neural networks, which are the bedrock of these AI systems to do this, to understand it. And the major finding here was that in the brain, and this is in our lab, I think there is a general consensus. People are starting to warm up to the idea that when you're learning in the brain, you're learning through gradients. So it's like calculus. The brain is literally computing the derivatives of functions within your brain to try and optimize on a task.
Hmm.
Our big finding was that although it's not only is it trying to dampen activity, like in to avoid the sort of runaway activity and keep it within a particular dynamic range, it's also trying to dampen the activity of the error signals.
Hmm.
That second part is one that was very underappreciated and not explored enough
Hmm.
in the literature, and we basically hypothesized that it's sort of the two go hand in hand.
Yep.
I've
Yep.
been super surprised by the response because when I published it online, sorry, I'm using my headphones because I'm like a musical artist on a concert. Small world. I'm surprised by the response because I thought it was just going to be a paper that no one reads because of the state of AI right now. But
Mm.
really surprised people are actually interested in it.
What was your favorite piece of feedback?
Somebody said it was super important work, which was very nice of him to say.
Yeah.
Aaron Milstein, he works in the same area, and he basically was saying that it's not well understood enough. The feedback that I got was there was actually a researcher, I forgot his name precisely, but he basically got into the physiology and was like, this hypothesis is great, but how does the brain actually do it at a biophysical level? The biology is very messy.
Mm.
It's not like a clear circuit. Things are connected to each other in very weird ways. Like the feedback was you make this claim that you could essentially you can essentially inhibit the error signals, but
Hmm.
how do you actually disinhibit the dendrites? It's not really a very clear one-to-one mapping
Mm.
in the way you perceive it to be. So that was an interesting piece of feedback. A little bit past my pay grade, but something to definitely look at in the future.
The biophysics of the neurons, how would that work?
Yeah, yeah. So that was the work. It was. I'm glad it's out, and thank you for taking a read at it, Omar. I didn't think
Yeah.
it'd be
That was good.
interesting.
It was really good. I read that gist um
Oh
thing,
yeah.
and I went back and forth with ChatGPT to clarify things. Like the way I actually gave me like a new appreciation of normalization. This is about to get very nerdy very quickly. But yeah, I gave
Yeah.
like a new appreciation for normalization, and I was when you pointed out something in the paper of how the hypothesis of how there's this like super neuron that connects to like a bunch of different neurons, and it can approximate random sampling or something like that,
Mm.
um to like get the mean. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember exactly what it was, but
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
that it.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, yeah, and there's a part of the paper where I basically said that with fixed weights, without actually learning, you can compute the mean.
Yes, and that it was like a really elegant explanation because I never think of biology is messy, and it's nice to see but there's in that mess there's sometimes these very
Elegant.
elegant ways to do something that is like computationally hard.
You know what? I love that you highlighted that point
Mm.
because it is an underappreciated part. I think the paper just came out, but I've never really heard people talk about it that much. Like, actually, my favorite paper is a paper called Feedback Alignment.
Tell me
It's
about
the
it.
most simplistic paper. Well, not really simplistic, but the solution is simple. It's one of these elegant solutions that the brain is thought to solve.
Mm.
So when you have these artificial neural networks, these systems that we use in ChatGPT everywhere you go, right? There's these big weight matrices, and these weight matrices essentially are they are what makes these models super large. They are the parameters of this model. I need to tune these weights to get them to do interesting tasks, like talk about
Predict the next word.
the next word or whatever you're doing on ChatGPT.
Hmm.
When you are training these ANNs, you need the exact weight matrix to train them in. Like you need to copy the weight matrix and then do it to get the error signal to update your weights. The solution to feedback alignment is like you don't actually need to do that. You don't need to transport those weights. You could just randomly sample
Really?
a weight matrix in backprop in the gradient step,
Uh-huh.
and it will still learn.
What? Wow.
And
Wait, so do you compute you randomly sample the original weight matrix and then you do subtract those two things to get the error? Like,
so you have the weight matrix in the forward pass is being learned. That's like being updated. In the back propagation pass, you sample the weight matrix once
mm-hmm.
and you keep it fixed. Yeah, and
And it
like
works.
it works for small tasks.
Okay, okay.
The idea is that you see, and then when you look at the alignment between the weights,
Mm-hmm.
like over training time, I need to double check, but I believe over training time, you start to see that they become more and more aligned, but not orthogonal. Like
Got it.
them being orthogonal would be
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
But there's a regime in which you can basically train a network with
Uh-huh.
fixed backward weights. And that was the
Wow.
exact idea that we used for this paper.
And you know when you were saying it takes off like it's a centering thing. That's the and then you tie it to this
That
the
paper.
the fixed the note. Ooh,
Yeah, yeah.
very
So
good.
so I like it was the suggestion came from my advisor. Like it wasn't my suggestion at all to do that, but I
Mm,
liked it because it was like it tied into that. I mean,
yeah.
the math we did a proof on it, and I think the proof kind of stands. Like the proof was basically that like the wider the network is, the
Mm-hmm.
more and more it approximates the mean.
Mm.
So
I guess that sort of makes sense
yeah, it's
when
like
you think of
the law of large numbers. Like
numbers. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's like a lot of like elegant little like fun little it's like fun little facts, fun facts.
Yeah, yeah, that was the thing. It was like read the paper and I'm like, it helps me appreciate the beauty of a thing that we already do. Like, and before we would use like the layer norm, for example, and we'd
Mm,
be like, we're using it because it works. We don't really know why it
yeah,
works. And then your paper was like, well, here's an explanation for why this works. So I get more appreciation of the thing we use. But it's not like I can take what you did and make whatever I currently do better.
yeah.
It's more like you accentuate the elegance.
So what I want like the original thing I wanted from this work was that I wanted to be able to detect shifts in distribution.
Mm,
My hypothesis was that if you can train this network to normalize, when it sees something that it's not seen before, there would be a big spike in activity.
mm,
And like that would require me to sort of adapt to new data distribution. So that was the original thing, but it turned out we didn't even get there. We anyway. So that was the work, but maybe on a more global setting before we move on, because this is getting very,
hmm
very deep.
hmm
This, these solutions that we're talking about, all these different neat things, these really cool things that the brain might do and trying to understand how the brain works, is the original motivation as to why I did a PhD in neuroscience and AI
Amazing.
because I really believed wholeheartedly, and people have contrarian views because the human intelligence, like natural intelligence, is not the only form of intelligence for some people. But I believe that the only way to study intelligence is by understanding the brain, and that
Yep.
will inform how we build artificial intelligence systems.
Mhm.
We always find these really interesting things, and there's a lot of other stuff that are really, really cool, nifty things that we can port over to the way we build our systems, actually at a mechanistic level.
Yeah. When you see some more papers around this that excite you, feel free to tell me about it on here on the pod.
No, there are many, there are many, there are many. Maybe we can cap it off with The
Terra
defense in
Industries.
the terror industry, defense industry in Africa. Man, this is there's a lot to say here.
Mm,
First of all, I want to commend Terra Industries. If you can give a before I do
uh-huh.
commending them,
Yeah.
we'll give a short summary of Terra Industries. Terra Industries basically, they are a defense company out of Nigeria
Mm-hmm.
who are building drones to support in warfare, right?
Yep.
So very, very high funded startup, not your typical African startup. And this is where I commend them, is that they're not a
Mm-hmm.
fintech.
No, they're not a fintech. Yeah, I think it's probably worth painting the picture. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm from the UK. I have roots from in Jamaica but mostly Western, but I keep an eye on what's going on in the African tech space. And Roy is probably way more close to this if you just give the context so people can relate you to the story.
Sure, no worries. Yes. So the past couple of 10 to 15 years within venture capital, like investing in startups, has been predominant. A lot of capital has gone to either agriculture, but this is really through private equity deals. Tech startups, like the way we talked about Silicon Valley, dominantly goes towards financial technology companies.
In Africa,
In Africa,
specifically.
like because our payment systems are not developed, a lot of people don't have access to a bank card. It's still cash for, it used to be cash for a lot of the African continent. Now they've developed incredible solutions like M-Pesa, where you can use your
Mm-hmm,
phone and pay with your phone, even
mm-hmm,
before the Western world.
hmm.
So this has been a very successful and very well-funded part of venture capital, the startup ecosystem in Africa. And I have issues with that. Like, I think it
Yeah.
was great because there was a Stripe acquisition. Stripe actually acquired a very big
Yes.
player. But,
Who was it? Was it Flutter?
I think, well, yeah, what's it Flutter?
Andela? Who was it? I don't remember.
Andela's the software house. I think it is Flutter. I think it might be Flutter.
Okay. Yeah. Some infrastructure. And like it's not like we're saying like out of 10 startups, like five of them are fin. We're saying out of 10 startups, like eight or nine is gonna be like
Yeah,
it's all fintech.
a lot of it.
Everything is fintech.
Fintech. It's crazy. So Terra Industries comes out of the woodwork and was like, we're gonna build a defense company. And when we did the deep dive, I was like, why did this take so long? I'm willing to put a bet that the continent with the most conflicts, like the most
That's so funny.
conflicts, like actual warfare conflicts, is the African continent.
That's so funny.
Like I actually like did an accounting in my head. I was like, there's the Sahel, the whole Sahel belt. So Mali with like Mali, Burkina
Uh
Faso, what's happening there with the, with the what's happening with the
the Middle East, the Egypt is pretty close to
like
there.
no, it's these basically like Islamic rebel groups who are
Hmm.
trying to basically take over these states, and they've been doing it for a long time. And
Wow.
these jihads, right? And France has been super involved in that. We probably need to fact check that, but this is something that's been going on for a long time, right? Um,
Okay. Sudan.
so
Okay. Senegal.
it's Mali, Burkina
Yep.
Faso,
Faso. Yep.
yeah,
Nigeria.
Nigeria as well. So Boko Haram,
Ah,
Boko Haram.
yeah.
These are conflicts that have been happening. Boko Haram is in
Mm-hmm.
Cameroon as well. Like, there's also now what's happening between Congo, Rwanda.
Mm-hmm.
There's what's happening in Sudan. There's Eritrea, Ethiopia, but that's maybe less of a maybe
Problem.
it's a problem. It's a big
Yeah.
problem, but I
Yeah.
think it's not like
On a world stage, it doesn't affect the world stage.
it doesn't. I mean, it does, but it's I don't know how much of it is like a you need Jones, right? I think it's something that you need peace here.
Yeah,
Like
ideally, everyone. Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
didn't know Indiana Jones. And then there's like, there's many places. Like the list goes on. What we've seen what's happening in the Middle East. These African countries have been in warfare for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, what are they using to take on, to
Probably
take on these terrorist
Iranian
groups?
weapons, Russian weapons, maybe even American weapons.
But like, there's also an education to it. I mean, like, I don't think we as sophisticated as these other countries, like even in a fraction. So Terra Industries is really our
Only bet.
to being ahead of the curve and actually having things within the continent. So I think that's
Hmm.
exciting. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. They in the article they were saying how like Nigeria, for example, they would be using like Chinese drones. They were like everything is bought outside of Nigeria for these nation state level importance tools that you need to have your independence with. So they're like critically important. And to your point about like why wasn't this invested in? Like I can imagine these VCs, they're so used to like fintech. It's just everything is just digital. They know the market. It's a familiar playbook. This is out of distribution. This is like immediately like you're making physical things in
Yeah.
Africa. It's also software and it's a long government contracts. It's like you're not dealing with like
Too
you
much
pay
risk.
$20 a month.
Too much risk.
It seems like so much risk for the typical VC, but like, isn't that their job?
And that I think the article that spoke about Terra industry and how it's kind of like it's a surprise, right? Is that like the venture and this is a deep topic because the venture capital landscape in Africa, no one would back a company like this. No one would back a company like this.
There's a dude who did back this company. I will tell you about this one dude.
Okay.
His name is Coco Zoo, and he literally flew all the way from California all the way to Nigeria to meet this team. And he is also like a phenom. Like
Mm,
he did like two majors in college. In Columbia, he did maths and something else. He did it in like half the time because he wanted to minimize debt. He was also working absolute monster. He raised the VC fund, and he's literally like, I want to only invest in like most like out there founders. Like he doesn't even care about like the business model. He's like, these founders are like the ones.
yeah.
That's a level of dedication that most normal VC investors, even in the West, wouldn't do. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a deal that we're used to seeing. This was a $34 million seed round for a company in Africa. It took someone on the edges in typical Western VC to see this opportunity.
Yeah. And that I think that speaks volumes
Mm,
to what is the venture capital landscape within the African.
mm.
It's true. I mean, in terms of a hierarchy of needs, one would argue it's not high. I think it's very high, given what I just mentioned now, with all those conflicts. Like,
Oh yeah.
again, it comes back to national security. This is your defense. There's a budget for these things. You want to push these things forward. And like, I have very big issues with the with the venture capital landscape in Africa, right? Like, it's a lot of very weird practices. Even who's getting money, like in East Africa, there was actually a fund. They did a whole analysis. A lot of people were like people who were blatantly, who had non-African origins.
Uh, huh?
A lot of them were Caucasians, which is okay, but like all of your $1 million rounds out of 30 in East Africa is coming from like only two are people from Kenya. Doesn't make
So you're saying like the VCs, the companies that they do happen to invest in Kenya, they're run by like white people.
Yeah, they run by people. Let me be more global. They run by people who are
Are not
not
black,
living.
who are not from Kenya.
Who are not from Kenya. Like even I could probably go there and raise money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like of course I need to have more credibility, but like it's to say that like I come in with my Western credentials and I say okay, cool, like I did this in my life and now I want to raise money, and I think that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the situation there. That's really the situation here. So like. But let's maybe deep dive. Like, what are Terra Industries actually doing? Are they building the drones as well as
Yeah,
like the surveillance?
yeah,
What about the
yeah.
cameras? Everything. It's a full
There's
experience.
like I watched their video and like they literally have their own drones. I think they're making their own drones. They're ordering the parts from China, I would imagine. They're probably not fabricating them themselves, but like the systems for seeing what the camera's seeing, tracking targets, that's all them. It's like similar to what Palantir showed of how like they have like these kill. It's like on Twitter they were saying it's like Jira for killing things via drones.
Okay, that's not supposed to be funny, but I see what you mean.
It's like, oh, yep. Oh, we see a target. Yeah, track that target. Yep, move it to kill. Yep.
Crazy CEO, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it was Alex.
Alex
He's got some hilarious
is
interviews.
is a funny guy. He's a funny guy,
Very
but
funny.
is an interesting character, that guy.
There's a lot of interesting characters in Silicon
Yeah,
Valley.
very interesting guy. But
What we were talking about.
yeah, but I mean, yes. So Terra Industries, I think it's fantastic what they're doing. I would love to see it being deployed within these sort of high conflict like areas. I think the
Hmm.
Sahel in particular, there is a really, I mean, it's been going on for a long time, and the French were heavily involved in trying to protect these regions from like terrorism.
Mm.
And like I don't know what the nature of the technology is, but I don't think it hurts. And I think what we're seeing in the Middle East is that these technologies are very effective.
Yes.
Like I think it's something that I would love to see them being deployed there.
Hmm.
And actual like certain nations taking that on. I mean, I know Chad is like super implicated in the Sahel with their defense and like yeah, the African defense scene is very, very interesting. It's a very interesting space. Like there's some Twitter pages that maybe we should even add as resources to this link for
Hmm.
people who talk about this a lot. But I think this is such a breath of fresh air, and I'm excited to see them actually see it actually being used within the African continent and governments actually taking this on because this is clearly within their
Yeah.
line of business,
Yes.
very
And
within the line of business.
as we're seeing countries that thought because they had a good relationship with the US or even a US military base in their country, they thought that that was going to provide the protection. If you look
Yeah.
at all the people in Dubai that were like, wasn't supposed to happen. I'm an influencer. And because in the UAE, they were like, but the US bases are here. If anything happens, the US is gonna pull up. But no, the Dubai airport is getting droned up by Iran. As the US is like almost like not doing what it's supposed to do, which is protect these people. People are realizing, oh, wait, I gotta protect myself. I can't just rely on the US to come and protect me.
And you know, let's talk. And I think you're hitting it on the nail here. This is the first time in human history that we have
For real.
autonomous flying vehicles that are involved in warfare. This is never like if you told someone 2,000
Hmm.
years ago that we're gonna be here, they'd be like, "This is like
They'd be like, what's going on?
what's going on?" Right? Like this. I mean, the plane already is an invention that's to marvel at, but now
Hmm.
you made it autonomous and
Hmm.
it can make decisions.
Yeah, that's a bit crazy.
This is evidenced by the fact that like, I don't think there is a and I'm not a wartime historian here, but like I don't think I need to double check this, but I don't think I ever recall anywhere in warfare in which once war was declared, I mean, whatever, once war was declared, they killed the lead on day one.
Yeah, it's crazy work. I'm like, yeah, I was reading somewhere that like the level they use the AI a lot for targeting, like figuring out how to find the people, who are the people I should target, because those people end up on the kill list. And the effectiveness of, well, the perceived effectiveness of the Americans after Maduro. Imagine you just pull up into a country, zoop, your president is mine now, and what?
Crazy.
And what? And then they go like one day, boom, Ayatollah gone. I'm like, first and
So
foremost, America's like, we're the shit. We
of
took out
course
two leaders in 2 months, or how long it was. But they're in a position. This is a very, very bad position that they are currently in, even though they
it
were
is.
very gassed up in the beginning.
It is a very bad position. And I think it's, I was in the grocery store today and like I feel it.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, you see the prices, right?
Hmm.
Like it's bad. And of course, the gas prices are being reflected on this. But come back to Terra Industries. This is where the world is in warfare. Like we need Terra Industries. We need
Correct.
many of them,
Hmm.
many
Hmm.
of them. And like I happen to know people personally who are in this space,
Hmm.
but in the US, and like it's high priority for other nations, and I don't see why it wouldn't be high priority for a lot of these African countries. So I think, bravo to Terra Industries, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with this.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it's one of these success stories. And like, please, people who are within the VC landscape and people who are investing in startups, these are the type of startups you want to invest in. Yeah, yeah.
Like da
So
da da da.
I think this is good. But yeah, man, I think that's it from us. I think this we have to time cap this, unfortunately. We can talk for ages, but
Hmm.
till next week.
Yes. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you next week.
Cheers, man.